Again, just notice them. Are there any blocks in the mind or in the heart? And as you notice them, just hold them in your awareness. In an awareness full of love, full of presence. And then gently draw the awareness to the more subtle level of your energetic being. What does it feel like in your energy right now? Just be aware of your energy in this moment as your energetic body intersects this moment of time and space. Just draw the awareness to it. Now draw the awareness to your breath, that flow of sacred prana. And as the awareness is merged with the breath, allow yourself to be aware of the breath, flowing through all of these different layers of existence. Notice the breath flowing through the physical body. Notice the breath flowing through the mind as you inhale and exhale. Can you be aware of that flow of life force? Can you feel it flowing through your heart? And can you be aware of the breath flowing through your energetic body as you take in the prana? And as you exhale it, just be aware of how that breath flows through the energy of you. You may notice an expansion frequently when we draw the breath in, it allows for an expansion in the systems, an expansion in the energy, an expansion in the heart and the mind. See if you notice that. And as the breath flows through, notice how it carries with it that sound of the universe, that energetic sound of the universe, reverberating through your energy. Gently bring the palms of the hands together at chest level and just rub the palms of your hands gently against each other. And press those palms of the hands into your closed eyes. Slowly, whenever you're ready, lower the hands and open the eyes. Welcome to Satsang. What an evening. Wow, it's not the windy season. And yet this just extraordinary energy, as we're talking about energy, and the wind just flows, reminding us of that energy of the universe flowing through us, around us. I love the seasons here. The trees offering themselves to us. Where does self-worth come from? By the way, I've been meaning to mention this. You should know these questions, although they usually come, as I always say, from our family not able to be here with us physically. Even if you are here physically, but you feel shy to ask a question, you should feel free to get your questions to our beautiful Seva team, to Sevanandaji, to Preeti, to Krishna Priya. Any of them can take your questions after satsang if you feel shy to raise your hand. Self-worth. In theory, it should come from the self. In theory, self-worth is that which should be self-evident. So I use my self to determine the worth of other things. Meaning, if we had an auction here, and in our auction, we auctioned off diamond bracelets, and we auctioned off cars, and we auctioned off yoga teacher training programs, and we auctioned off a few minutes alone in Pujya Swamiji's presence, and we auctioned off a sacred mantra bath in the waters of Ganga. A whole spectrum of things, from those that had very objective material value to things that you couldn't actually buy in the marketplace, but to many people are far more valuable than that which you can. If we had an auction, some of you would be ready to bid, the highest amount for the diamonds or for a car, or some of you would bid for a yoga program. Some would say, I don't want any of that. I'll pay you whatever it is. Just, God, a few minutes sitting with Pujya Swamiji. Wow. Based on our sense of self and what it values. A simple price tag on something is not actually the value, because many people walk right by it totally uninterested. You walk by signs that say sale. Well, if you don't want what they're selling, the fact that they're having a sale is utterly irrelevant. If you don't have a value or worth from your internal self, doesn't matter what price tag somebody puts on it. You wouldn't pay a penny for it. And then there's things that you'd give everything for, but that don't have a price tag on. Now, that sense of worth and value comes from what we would call our self. My own values, my priorities, my mind, how it works. Not the capital S self, but the lowercase s self, this individual self with a mind, with a body, with a story, with values and ethics and all of these things. I determine the worth of other things. But then what determines the worth of the self? Who determines that? Well, it's a tragic irony, because that actually is that which should be self-evident. I use the self to see outside. But the self itself should be self-evident. But we actually do the opposite. We use our internal sense of self to determine the worth of things outside, and then we use external markers to determine our sense of self-worth. We look at pictures in magazines or billboards or on social media, and we kind of compare what we look like to that, and we decide, are we beautiful? Are we handsome? Are we worthy of, walking out of the house in the morning? We look at people around us, how they're living, what they're doing, what they value. And we take our self-worth from the outside. When we're smart enough to know that the value we give to outside things should only come from inside. If I started trying to sell you this, right? If I started to do a commercial for it, now, it's just the top. It's the top of my glass of water. But if I started to sell this to you, and I went into this full-on advertising campaign, God, it's the only perfect circle on the planet. Right? It's made out of absolutely pure stainless steel. It's only going to cost you 50,000 rupees. You'd say, I don't buy it. Not interested. Not only wouldn't you value that, but you wouldn't value me, because I'm the person trying to convince you of something's worth when clearly it isn't worth that much. Clearly, it's just one cup cover like any other cup cover. And you would feel a little bit internally insulted at the fact that I was trying to sort of scam you into believing that something had a value that it didn't. And you would continue to go back to your internal sense and say, I don't think so. And yet, even though you won't believe what I say about how much this is worth, you'll believe everything I say about how much you are worth. And I don't mean just me, as me sitting up here giving satsang, sharing truth. I mean any random person in the world. Someone tries to sell you something. Internally, we know this is a scam. I'm being, they're advertising to me. They're trying to scam me. And our radar goes up. And we don't want any of it. But when someone tells us something about ourselves, you're ugly, you're beautiful, you're too fat, you're too thin, you're stupid, you'll never find a spouse, you're worthless, we buy it. Full on. And it's a great tragedy because other people's sales pitches about who you are even less valid than their sales pitches about something they're trying to sell you. Self-worth has to come from myself, not from outside. If I rely on cues from outside to feel okay about me, then I'm going to constantly go up and down, up and down. Someone says, oh, you're beautiful, and I feel like, oh, thank God. I finally deserve to occupy my place here on earth. Someone smiles at us, appreciates us. We feel worthy. Someone criticizes us, insults us, ignores us, and we feel unworthy. Self-worth has to be that which is evident from the self. If you trust yourself to determine the value of things outside, why can't you trust yourself to understand your own true value? But most of us don't. And on the other tragic side, those of us who do trust ourselves, in most cases what we're trusting is not actually our true self, but we're trusting some indoctrination that we got typically when we were very young that told us all kinds of negative things about ourselves. So we move through the world even where we have the potential to thrive, to succeed, to shine. But we don't because we're carrying this negative self-worth from something someone said or did when we were young. So self-worth tragically comes from outside usually, but it needs to come from inside. And it's a great exercise to just ask yourself, before you go to sleep tonight, take a few minutes in your meditation and just ask yourself, how worthy do I feel like I am? What is my self-worth? And if it's anything other than fully worthy, beautiful, divine, a human, therefore struggling with human issues, doesn't render us less worthy. But being a human struggling with human issues, fully worthy. If your answer is anything other than that, if there's any trace in you that says you are some negative adjective or noun, You are lazy. You are worthless. You are a mess. Ask yourself very simply, where did I hear that for the first time? How did that thought get inside of me? How could I possibly have been brainwashed for so long to believe something so false? And really look at, where did it come from? For many of us, it comes, as I mentioned, from our childhoods, from families of origin, from teachers. Then, of course, we continue to get it as we grow with billboards and magazines and commercials constantly telling us we're not enough. Unless you look like this, you're not worthy. So we get it from a lot of sources, but it's really powerful to understand kind of the deep first source. And then to realize how untrue it is. And to shift your scale and start using your internal awareness. Another good exercise is, if you were having to describe you to someone else, to talk about yourself in the third person, you had to introduce yourself to someone else with all of the positive, beautiful aspects that you could. How would you introduce yourself? What would you tell someone? What do your friends think about you? Can you see yourself through the eyes of those who love you? What do they find worthy? And again, you don't want to hook into it too much, because then when they're angry at you, your self-worth plummets. Then when you don't get that look of love, your self-worth plummets. But it helps in the beginning to just understand, what is it that those who love you see in you? And start to really dive into that. It's a beautiful daily meditative practice to understand, regardless of what you accomplished or achieved today or did, our self-worth is not based on what we do. It's based on who we are. And allow yourself to really fall into that. Drop into that each evening before you go to sleep. Questions? Any question that anyone here has? Yes, yes.
How to come out from the fear of
How to come out from?
the fear of death.
Fear of?
Death.
Death.
Because when I plan something, I wish for something, I feel like I'm going to die soon, so why should I wish for it? So what is the solution?
I'm so sorry, I cannot hear you.
So because if I wish to learn the music, wish to learn the dance, I am afraid that I am going to die soon, then why should I take challenges to learn this? So what is the solution to come out of this?
Okay, great. So it's two aspects of the fear of death. ये माइक थोड़ा देख लीजिएगा कैसे थोड़ा सा और शक्ति हो उसमें. So how to overcome the fear of death, and also as it manifests in this sense of, well, if I'm going to die soon anyway, why bother learning things? Why bother doing things if I'm just, moving along toward death? What's the point of doing anything? So I'll take the second part first, which is, we are here in this body, in this lifetime, to experience the truth of who we are. To know the truth of who we are, to have an experience of that which is not the body, that which is not the story or the career or the relationships or the history. To really have an experience within of that self which doesn't change, that self which is constant, eternal. That's why we're here, is to have that experience of that presence of the divine within ourselves. And then with every moment we have left, to use that awareness to serve. That which you don't do in this lifetime, as far as your own karmic journey, you're just going to have to do again in the next lifetime. It's like saying, it's already March, school is over in June, why bother learning anything? Right? Like 3 months left, spring quarter, who cares, what's the point? I'm not going to go to class, I'm not going to do my homework. Well, because if you don't, then you don't graduate. You got to come back next year and do it all over again. So, in the same way, that which is left undone, unrealized in this life, we come back next life to do it. That's this cycle of birth and death and rebirth. Is we have to clear, we've got karmic bank accounts. When you do something, an action, a karma, it generates a fruit, that karmic fruit. And it goes into what you could think of as like a karmic bank account. And you've got sweet fruits and bitter fruits, what we would call bad or good karmic fruit. People say bad and good karma, but karma is actually the action. But unlike a normal bank account, they don't cancel each other off. So in a normal bank account, if I've got $10 in the account and I withdraw $10, I've got $0 in the account. If I've got $10 in the account and I withdraw 15, I've got -5. But in karma, it doesn't work like that. We actually have to go through it all. The sweet stuff, the bitter stuff, they don't cancel each other out. So we have to keep coming to go through it. So it's like you come into this world, in this life, with a karmic bank account that says, here are the experiences that your soul, your jivatma, needs to go through before its bank account is cleared and it attains moksha. And you say, nah, I don't feel like it. All right. Come back and do it again next birth. Plus, of course, all of the additional aspects in the bank account from that which you didn't do in this life, which was your dharma. We're given dharma in this life. And acts of omission are just as much acts as acts of commission. So that which I don't do, that I should have done, is just as much an action as that which I did. If I'm walking down the street and somebody falls in front of me and I don't help them up, that's an action. If people are suffering and I have the ability to help and I don't, That is an action. So, however many days you have left, and if you've got days left, you can be sure that you've got work left to do. Because there's a really undeniable way that the universe lets us know when our work on earth is over. We leave the body. That's how to know when your work in this life is over. As long as there is prana in your body, you've got work left to do. So whether it's a day, a week, a month, use the time. Yeah, you're going to die. Well, the body's going to die. You're not going to die. You don't die. Just the body dies. So that's that piece. And then in terms of being afraid of death, on the one hand, it's the most natural thing in the world. Everything is afraid of death. Try to kill a mosquito that's buzzing around your room. Right? Where it was sitting just calmly on the wall, not moving, the minute you decided you were going to smack it, what does it do? Everything wants to live. Nature is amazing. If you look even at the plant kingdom, what plants have to prevent themselves from being eaten, whether it's a poisonous taste, whether it's a smell, whether it's bristles on it, whether it's thorns on it. Everything in nature is created with something to help it not die, not be gobbled up. And yet, the nature of the universe is every plant, every animal, every human, everything dies. To date, there has never been an exception to the rule. And yet we all live like we are the exception to the rule. Don't be afraid of dropping your body. It's the only guarantee you have in life. Be afraid of not living. Be afraid of getting to the point where you are dropping your body and you say, oh my God, I missed the whole boat. That's what we should be afraid of. Oh my God, I spent this whole time focused on things that don't actually matter. I focused only on money. I focused only on power. I focused only on grudges about what other people are saying or doing. Be afraid of no longer having the opportunity to sit in the beautiful wind on the banks of Ganga. Be afraid of no longer having the opportunity to offer yourself in love, in service to another. Be afraid of that. Death's going to happen anyway. Nothing you can do about it. So fear of it is just handicapping you now. Be afraid of dying while there is still prana in your body. Other questions? Yes.
My name is Namrita Srivastava. I'm advocate on record in Supreme Court of India.
Wonderful.
Thank you for this beautiful satsang, and this took me to another spiritual level. You beautifully explained that how to not to rate ourselves by the thoughts of others. My question is, then what are the ways to motivate myself? Because as human, we face these challenges every day. And we start with the positive thoughts, but end up with the negative thoughts. Thank you.
At least you start with positive thoughts. You're still a step ahead of those who begin their day with negative thoughts. So you're at least beginning in the right direction. How to motivate ourselves if we're not going to use external senses of worth and value? How to motivate ourselves? Through the awareness that we've been given so much. Through the awareness that we are here for a purpose, that we're here to fulfill our dharma, through the awareness that that which we do has the power to ripple out into the world. And by the way, not motivating ourselves by what people think of you doesn't mean that you don't care. I don't mean be indifferent. We all love to see a smile on the face of someone we've just done something for. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being motivated to cook a good meal because the people you cook it for say, yum, that was so good. Nothing wrong with that. When we were talking about the external sense of self, it had to do with self-worth. Don't take your self-worth based on the outside. But you can absolutely look for energy of motivation wherever you get it. So for example, especially on superficial things, but things that are important. For example, let's say you decide you're going to start an exercise program. Okay. You're going to walk every day or run every day or do yoga every day. Now, it's hard to keep motivating yourself on your own day after day after day. And this is why when people teach motivation, one of the things that is always recommended is, have partners, have an accountability partner, run in a group, go with friends to the gym, so that you're motivating each other. So that when you're in bed saying, I don't feel like it, your friend says, no, come on. Nothing wrong with that. We need sometimes energy from those around us to propel us. Ideally, it would all come from within. The sages and the saints and the rishis living in the caves in the Himalayas didn't need to motivate each other to get up every day and do yoga. But a lot of us need that motivation. There's nothing wrong with that. But in terms of the big picture of your life, how you are dedicating your life, rather than taking cues from what TV commercials, advertisements, billboards, social media are telling you, which is only buy more, which means you better earn more. Earn more, buy more, have more. Instead of that, look within and say, what is it actually that gives me happiness? What is it actually that gives me joy? For example, let's take your example as a judge. So for you, what gives you real happiness in that work, I imagine, is bringing justice, helping the underserved, being able to give justice to people who don't get it. But if you were not spiritually inclined, if you were someone whose mind was in the wrong place and just only impacted by external, then you would have no choice but to become a corrupt judge. Because as an uncorrupt judge, you wouldn't be able to make enough money to buy all of the things that commercials and all of these people are telling us that you would need to buy to be happy. So then you would have to make different choices. You'd live your life in fear, in stress, because you're living out of alignment with truth, under this illusion that somehow, once I get enough money to buy things, then I'll be happy. And at the end of the day, of course, you're miserable. If instead of that, you take the cue for happiness from inside, which isn't in needing to buy things, but actually in the self. Pujya Swamiji always says, instead of focusing so much on filling your shelf, focus on discovering the fullness of the self. That most of us get distracted about filling the shelf, and we forget about the self. So when you're looking for your motivation, ask yourself, what is it that actually brings me meaning, joy, love, peace in my life? What is it that enables me to be an instrument in God's hands and serve? What is it that enables me to be a light that shines for others? And that should excite you to get up every day and be that light and fill your heart with more and more peace and love, and then give that peace and love from your heart to others. And we get impacted. You live in a world where from morning till night you're hearing lies, you're hearing corruption, you're hearing all kinds of negativity. But this is where what's important for you and all of us is to remember. As energetic beings, we receive and we also transmit. And we're doing both all the time, but it's really helpful to be consciously aware and deliberate with attention and intention in our energy. And so, for example, there are places where you're going to want to just receive. You're sitting in the Ganga Aarti, you're sitting on the banks of Ganga, you're meditating, you're with your family, you're doing some beautiful seva, and you're just receiving the beautiful, positive spiritual energy. And then you're going into the courthouse, where you're hearing lies and corruption and fighting and craziness. Well, when you go in there, make a very deliberate shift in the mind that says, here I transmit, don't receive. So instead of taking in their negativity, instead can you be focused on just transmitting love and peace and truth? You're already transmitting justice. Justice should be full of joy. Not necessarily for those who are receiving it, but certainly for the one who's giving it. Don't let them impact you. It's like the jailer and the prisoners in jail, right? If the prisoners in jail are criminals, and the jailer walks in and allows himself or herself or another worker, the cook, the volunteer, I mean, anybody who's working in a jail, if you allow yourself to be turned into a criminal, then you've defeated the purpose. The point is to bring your light into a place of otherwise darkness. Same thing for you in the courtroom. You're bringing light into a place that needs it so much. One of the things that's a little trick that a very, very, very powerful energy worker, energy healer taught me decades ago is nature, so leaves, trees, water, anything that's natural is an absorber of negative energy. And so literally, if you can have just a little plant at your desk, even if not on the top, down below, whatever it is, such that as you're sitting there all day, you are just literally rubbing the leaves of this plant, connecting you to that, it'll help take that energy. And every time that you've got any kind of a recess or a break, make sure in the bathroom to just let lots of water run over your hands, over your face. Like use water and use nature as a way to just give that energy into it as the day is going. And then when you come back home, you have a shower, it'll all wash off. So you should end the day as positive as you began it, with just thank you, God, for letting me bring light, to be an instrument of justice, to be this vehicle for the divine here on earth. Yeah. Beautiful. Any other question? Yeah, actually, come back to you. We did do that. Yes. Yavya.
Pranam Sadhviji. Thank you for your beautiful words always. And I have can I make two questions?
Sure. I may take one now and one tomorrow.
Okay, tomorrow I'm not here. Then
I'll take them both.
Okay.
Done.
Well, first one, how can we serve those who don't want to be served? Like you think I have the tools, I studied, I know what to do, but maybe out of ego or something.
You can't. You cannot. If someone doesn't want to be helped, you can't help them in that way. Let's say, for example, let's say that I love someone who's an alcoholic, or who's a drug addict, or who is just always really negative and judgmental and cranky, or whatever it may be. And I very much want to help that person stop drinking, stop using, become more positive. If they don't want to change, there is nothing I can do for them in that arena. And if I keep trying, all it's going to do is drive them further from me. It makes them contract. They feel attacked. They go on the defensive. They stop listening. But I still can serve them, meaning I still can love them. I can still create space in which, if and when they want to change, that there is a space into which they can walk. So it's not that I give up on them. I just recognize I cannot serve them in this way because they're not prepared to accept it. It's like the metaphor that I use about, having the faucet on but the bucket is upside down. You could be giving someone water who's dying of thirst. But if they refuse to turn their bucket the right side up for actually it to be able to receive the water you're giving them, all of the water you give is just going to pour over the top and out the drain. And it won't benefit them at all. If you cannot convince them to right side their bucket, you can't benefit them with that water. But you can still love them, even as they're thirsty. And you can just hold the space, hold the energy of love and of presence and of acceptance, such that they can walk into it, if that is what their karmic journey in this lifetime is going to be. Yeah. Beautiful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. 2 quick logistic announcements actually before we close. The first is I will actually not be here tomorrow. I just realized I am in Delhi tomorrow. I'll be back late night tomorrow night, so we'll not have satsang tomorrow, but we will from day after. Second thing is tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. on the banks of Ganga on our beautiful platform with Shiva, we're doing a 1 hour from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Very, very special yoga practice. It's of what's called the Common Yoga Protocol, which has been developed by the government of India for International Day of Yoga. So on International Day of Yoga, all over the world, people are doing this Common Yoga Protocol. It includes basic sun salutations, basic asanas, some basic pranayam, nothing advanced. If you've never done yoga, don't worry, you'll be able to do most things. And we're having it here as a very special part of the curtain raiser leading up to the International Day of Yoga in June. So they've got different yoga institutions doing it on different days, and tomorrow is our day. So we invite you all to join us. If you've got a yoga mat, bring one. If not, they will have extras, but if you've got one, bring one. And just join us a little bit before 7 a.m. on where we have Ganga Aarti in the evening. Join us there just before 7 in the morning. And I will see you back for satsang day after tomorrow. And so much love to all of you.